What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to this video called Explaining Europe to Americans. And you know what? I'm ready. I am ready to learn. Because here in the United States, we are really not taught anything about Europe in school, and we're definitely not exposed to European culture here in the US. And I think that it really shows because most of us Americans don't even know the first thing about Europe. So today, I want to take a look at this video by Hello Erica and have Europe explained to me in a way that Americans can hopefully understand. So let's take a look.
Europe, the land of weird European movies, the metric
Oh.
system, the relaxed laws of underage drinking, and the starter of both world wars. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of
The land of underage drinking? Is that what she said? That's is that what Europe is known for? Drinking?
information about Europe, and it's been a bit misguided. So here, I present to you a little crash course about this part of the world.
Okay.
So let's start off with geography. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Europe does not look like this.
I just gotta say, it's funny that we're starting off with geography because that's might be one of the biggest parts of Europe that us Americans are terrible at. Don't even get me started. Like most Americans know like three countries in Europe. Seriously. Like Germany or France. And that's about it, to be honest. It really seems like something we should have been taught in school. So it's good. This is good because most of us don't know anything about Europe's geography.
It looks like this. Europe has over 40 countries, so it's much more than just France, Germany, and Italy.
Right, exactly. There's over 40 countries in Europe? I didn't even know it was that many.
And saying you visited Europe is a very broad term because this part of Europe is very different from this part of Europe. The biggest country in Europe
Right.
is Russia, and the smallest country in Europe is the Vatican City.
Is Russia technically part of Europe? Maybe that sounds like a stupid question, but I've actually wondered about that. Like, is Russia a part of Europe? Or otherwise, what? It'd be like part of Asia? Or I don't know. That's another thing that we're not taught about.
Which is basically a giant building with a giant park. Europe can be divided depending on how you look at it. It can be divided politically, geographically, or historically. For example, here,
Oh, wow.
the east from the west, and here, the red from the green from the turquoise.
Well, I didn't know anything about any of this. Yeah, like she said, when a lot of Americans talk about Europe or talk about traveling to Europe, we say, like, I'm going to Europe, and I can see where that is strange or maybe even annoying because, like, if you said, I'm going to the United States, we would ask, where are you going? Like, it's a big place, a lot of different states and what do you mean? Where are you going? Europe is even like more diverse. It's over 40 different cultures, countries, all these different languages and histories. And so I actually can see where it's kind of stupid to be like, yeah, I went to Europe, when it's like, where? Like, that's so broad, but that's how we talk about it in the United States because we don't really know any details or specifics. Yeah.
Or potato tomato
What? You can.
regions. So let's look at the general way of how Europe
What?
can be divided.
Okay.
Firstly, on the list is, of course, Western Europe. These are the countries that people want to move in, live in, and be born in.
Whoa.
They are economically better off and they have a lot of work opportunities.
Whoa. I. We're getting like very blunt, very real. I don't know anything about the like economic status of all these different countries or where you want to live or is this like something that is known in Europe? Do you guys agree on this? Like, oh, everybody wants to live on the western side of Europe. Is that like a consensus or just an opinion?
These countries include Germany, France, Austria, Belgium, and if you don't count the British Islands as their separate thing, then they also are in the west of Europe. Next up, we have Northern Europe. A lot of these countries are doing great, or even they're better off in terms of quality of life. Except for
wow.
Sweden, it's having a rough patch with crimes, apparently. But they're pretty
God.
cold, and in the winter it gets really dark, so not a lot of people want to move there necessarily.
Right. From what I understand, that's like Scandinavia, those countries, and they're really, really happy and very successful countries, but they have very small populations and because it's very like cold and gets very dark and yeah, so it's kind of weird because they're very happy and successful in good places, but it's like the weather is like unfortunately really difficult.
Not only are they cold when it comes to weather, but also when it comes to their friendliness scale. They're usually considered a bit more unfriendly or reserved. These countries are also referred to as Nordic or Scandinavian countries. They have
Right.
a lot of Viking heritage and they like to fish. They have a lot of fish and
Okay.
water around them. Moving on to
Yeah, that would be difficult. The idea of countries that are people are more distant, like your behavior is more cold or distant, or because Americans, like in general, are very social. You know, we have a stereotype of being like annoying, loud, talkative, like maybe too much so. And I think a lot of Americans would get a lot of like culture shock from how different the social norms are.
Southern Europe. These are the countries that people like to visit on vacation. They're warm, maybe too warm for some people.
What?
And by some people, I mean me. They have great food and wine, they're pretty friendly, and some of them like to take naps in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I hear about a lot of Americans, if they do travel to Europe like once in our whole life, a lot of Americans try to travel to Europe one time at least. A lot of people go to Italy. I've heard a lot of Italy. That's a really big one for Americans.
Which sounds like a dream. But their economy is not doing that great.
Oh,
And if you're wondering why is this
Uh-oh.
section a darker orange, well, I'll get to that in a bit. And now we
Okay.
have Eastern Europe.
okay.
Well, the problem with Eastern Europe is that nobody wants to be called Eastern Europe. This division is based on the time when the Fire Nation attacked, so a lot of these countries
What?
were occupied. Since East of Europe is not the best
Oh.
area to be associated with, countries like to identify themselves with other names. For example, Romania, Croatia likes to be called the Balkans. Estonia, Latvia, and
Oh.
Lithuania are the Baltics. But to be
I've heard some of these words, like Baltics, and I've heard those words before. I had no idea they had anything to do with Europe or groups of European countries. Or I don't know if this is like a touchy subject. It kind of sounds like it. The Eastern being called Eastern European, like, does that have a bad connotation associated with it because of like world wars or something? I don't think about any of that stuff. I really don't know anything about Eastern Europe. I don't know I don't know anything about Europe. But I at least know like where the UK and like Spain is and Italy. I don't know I think most Americans are similar like that, where we know a couple of the Western areas, Nothing about the Eastern Europe.
To be honest, they're quite high up geographically, so maybe they could be considered even Northern Europe. Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia likes to be called the Central Europe. And now we're left with countries that are not doing that great for multiple reasons. And I would say maybe they
Okay.
would rather be called Slavic countries rather than Eastern Europe.
Slavic. I've heard that word. I've heard a lot of these words. I never had any idea what they meant.
You can be both, but one of them sounds a bit more cool than the other one. So if you agree with the
Okay.
concept of Central Europe, then scratch whatever I said before about Europe looking like this. Now Europe looks like this. And I have to say I have nothing against being called Central Europe or the existence of Central Europe. I think
Okay.
it's just funny how nobody wants to be called Eastern European.
For us Americans, this is all like, this is not a thing for us. We never talk about Northern Europe or Eastern or Central Europe. Those are not phrases that we use. Like, I never hear that. It's just Europe. Even though obviously Europe is big enough and diverse enough to necessitate like dividing it like this. This makes a lot of sense. And here in the United States, we have like different areas like the Midwest and Central US and the East Coast, and we divide up the United States like it sort of like this. So it should make a lot of sense. I've just never thought about it.
So then lastly, we have Central Europe. Basically all the German-speaking countries and more. These countries are located in the core economic region of Europe. They have stable governments and a relatively high quality of life.
Cool.
And these countries also love beer. And they like to fight on who
Okay.
drinks the most beer.
Hey, why didn't you say so? I think some Americans go to Germany because Germany has the reputation. In America, Germany is known for beer. Apparently, there's a couple Central European countries that love beer. I didn't know.
This is an interesting correlation I found. Not that it's related to geography, but it's an interesting fact. With all that said, the number one thing you should remember is that Europe is not a country. It is a continent that has a lot of countries.
Yeah. I've actually seen videos of Americans who think Europe is one country. But most Americans, especially those of us who have a brain, like, are well aware that Europe is many different countries, although it is a bit of a habit for us to refer to it as Europe. Even when something happens in just one country, like if something happened in Spain, in the United States, would be like, oh, something happened in Europe. Something happened in Europe. It's like, no, Spain. Like we never get specific. I don't really know why.
And if you know where the capital of Paris, Berlin, and London is, you're doing a good job and you should pat yourself on the shoulder. And I definitely don't
No.
expect you to know where Malta is, which is
No.
right here. And
What?
it's very small. I
Huh?
don't even expect people from France to know the capital of Latvia. So if you know a little bit about this place, it's already pretty good. I think one of the
I don't.
most important things is just not to make assumptions. For example, calling Lithuania basically Russia is very disrespectful. Or Ireland is the same as UK.
That's something that a lot of Americans would do. I don't know anything about Lithuania or Russia. Like that's not really a thing we say. But a lot of Americans really don't know the difference between the UK, England, Britain, Ireland, Northern Ireland. A lot of Americans don't even know about Northern Ireland. No offense, but yeah, the UK is probably the best example of how Americans do not understand geography.
Not a good thing to do. So maybe open a map before opening your mouth. Just a friendly suggestion. And also maybe it's helpful to know the difference between Europe and European Union, which I'll cover that in a bit. And now we can move on to
Okay.
history. Well, Europeans have a lot of beef with each other. UK and Ireland, Romania and Hungary, Portugal and Spain, and Russia with basically everybody in the world. And it's all because of history. Europe has a lot of it.
Now, this is really interesting. We don't learn much detail about European history. You'd have to like study that in university or something if you wanted to learn about that in the United States. In normal public school, we don't learn about all this. But it's really fascinating to think about how there must be very interesting relationships between all the European countries based on history. Like, and I don't understand any of the relationships between any of the European countries. I don't know what you guys think of each other or what the history looks like or so this actually is really interesting.
There were a lot of agreements, disagreements, and wars over land in the past and also now. Some stuff is
Sure.
serious and some stuff ended up countries just making fun of each other. For example, Austria making fun of Germany, France and the Netherlands making fun of Belgium,
What?
or the whole Scandinavian area making fun of the Danes because of their weird sounding language. Because of
What?
history, we have cities like this that were weirdly divided between Netherlands and Belgium. They even have
Oh.
houses that are divided into two, so pretty strange.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this is funny. Um, Hearing about what European countries think of each other. Like, I like this. It's interesting, and uh, some of you guys make fun of each other. It's kind of like here in the U.S. We make fun of different areas of the United States, like the South and like Texas or stuff, or California, or depending on where you live.
And we also have a city like this in the Baltics, between Estonia and Latvia. Then, when you compare Europe to the US, you can see that America is actually bigger in size than Europe, much
Right.
bigger. Europe is 2/3 of America. But the main
Wow.
difference between these two is that one of them is much more densely populated than the other. The US has
Right.
300 million people living in there, and Europe has 700 million.
Whoa. I did not know that. Europe is smaller and it has twice as many people, over twice. So Europe is extremely dense with people compared to the US. Smaller area and over double the population.
And yet they're smaller in size. Each country here has their own rules, their own languages, their own culture.
Right.
And so a more accurate comparison would be something like this. Every
Huh.
country is their own little America.
This is what more Americans need to understand. Europe, it's amazing, honestly, like, because when you live here in the US, you almost feel like you're on another planet. You're alone. Like, it's just Americans. You almost never see another person from another country, ever. For a lot of people in the U.S. Unless maybe if you're by like the Canadian border or like the Mexican border, yeah, sure. But for most of us, we never see Europeans or anybody really from other parts of the world in real life. It's very rare and very special and exciting. And just to try to understand in Europe, you guys are like right next to a bunch of different countries with different languages and different cultures and different people. All of the European countries have all that diversity right around you. And here in the US, it's like Canada, sure, which is similar in a lot of ways, and Mexico, but a lot of Americans don't even go there.
And what I mean by that, we can take a look at Germany, for example. The country is divided into 16 states. And this Germany and this Germany is very different. They also sound very different. When they
What?
talk to each other, they might not even understand each other.
Huh? Jeez. I never thought about all that. So Germany has states. I did like how the US has states. Right, right. I know. Okay. I've never thought about geography like this detailed in other countries. And German language can be different depending on where you. So every country in Europe is like this? with different regions and different ways of talking and oh my God.
Plus, we also have Austria right here that also speaks German, but their German is very different from the standard German. But they are right next to each other. So, how did this happen? History and culture and a lot of the stuff in between. Then we can
Wow.
also look at UK, which is fully separated from Europe by water. Here the country is
Right.
divided into 4 regions, which is Scotland, Wales, England, and Northern Ireland.
Right.
But if you look deeper under the surface, it's also divided into smaller regions. And if you try harder, you can also divide it into just towns, cities, and villages. The
Oh
UK is
my.
an interesting example of how the language and the culture developed a little bit differently, even though they're right next to each other and the country is quite small.
That's amazing because here in the United States, all all of the states, we have slightly different accents, sure, but the English language in America is essentially all exactly the same. Like you can go anywhere in America and it might look different geographically or a little different weather but how people talk, we can all understand each other. It's not that different. Or so this is really interesting, like how it almost sounds like European countries have a lot more diversity of like different regions and language within one country, which is really interesting. The United States hasn't been around that long. So I guess with Europe, because you guys have been around so long, you have a lot more time to have developed these different ways of speaking and like even within the same country.
Here, people can recognize your status or class based on where you grew up in, which is a thing, I suppose. Now, let's
Wow.
talk about the economical state of Europe.
Okay.
Firstly, let's cover what is the EU, or European Union.
A lot of us Americans have heard of the EU. We've heard of it. And we basically just think, oh, okay, that's Europe. Um, so I think a lot of Americans could benefit from trying to understand like how is the EU different from Europe?
As they say. It is an international organization comprising of 27 countries that govern common social, economic, and security policies.
Okay.
EU is in Europe, but the whole Europe is not in the EU. Just like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square.
Oh, don't
What I mean is
start
that
with
not
that.
all European countries are a part of this. Some do want to join and some want to leave.
Got it. Right. So it's a group in Europe. Some countries are a part of the EU. That's pretty simple, actually.
For a variety of reasons. From my understanding, this is the EU flag, not the Europe flag, but we do use it as a Europe flag to represent the unity of Europe. Which is a
Okay.
little bit confusing, but there's not much I can do. The nice part about the EU is
Okay.
that a lot of European countries share the same currency, which is the euro.
Right.
Currency.
The euro.
Not all of them use euros, but many do. These countries like to stick to their currencies. So if you try and buy some groceries with your American dollars, you will most likely be rejected. Unless you're in an airport or some kind of tourist hotspot, then it will not go that well.
I'm really interested, like, how often do you travel to another country? Like, every weekend? Like, every month? Or does it depend on whether you want to travel? Or, because it's so different in the United States. Traveling to another state, like, that could be something fun. There could be something cool there, or a different city. If we could just get in our car or get on a train and travel to another country, that would, for one thing, make Americans so much more aware and so much more, like, less ignorant, obviously. I don't know, just Europe is so cool how you guys can just have access to all this. And you've even developed the EU, so you have like the euro, but some countries have a different currency, so you have to like know about that. It's confusing, especially for an American, where here in America, it's all pretty simple and streamlined, and it's all universal. Whereas in Europe, you may be part of EU, you may be in Europe, but everything seems so different depending on where you go.
I mean, would you sell me a sandwich if I say I have 200,000 Animal Crossing bells? Probably not. And if you said yes, I'm not sure about your business practices. 20 EU countries use euros, but in total it's 27 because some countries decided
Okay.
to make it their currency unofficially. But not all EU countries switched to euro, and some of them still stayed with their old currency.
Oh,
So if
wow.
you're traveling to those countries, check ahead what kind of money do they use.
That's confusing, but I get it. Like, that's part of your culture and your history. I could see where a country would want to maintain its currency. But at the same time, it's very, very convenient if everything was just the euro. That'd be, I bet a lot of people would be happy.
And ignore UK because I forgot they decided to leave or they already left. So they're just doing their own thing.
Right.
But many countries over the years did switch to using euro.
That's Brexit, right? That's what Brexit was?
Which is very convenient when you travel, but as a Latvian, I remember having lats and being very sad that we're gonna switch to euros now.
Oh,
The only
yeah.
reason I didn't want it to happen because I really liked this coin and, you know, nostalgia reasons and
Yeah.
cultural reasons.
Yeah,
But now
yeah.
I don't have to exchange my currency or try and always calculate in my mind how much is this in lats or how much is this in euros.
Yeah.
So, overall, a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
I think you can let me know if you have an opinion about this. Now, the last thing on our list is culture. America is not Europe. And
No. I don't think anybody thinks that. I don't think anybody thinks America and Europe are similar or equal or we are incredibly different. This video alone is showing me that.
Europe is not America. We run things differently around here. Like, for example, it's very rare to find a building that has central AC. Most of us just have a big heat wave in the middle of the summer and we suffer for 2 weeks and then it's all good. But the normal AC is a bit more common in Southern Europe. But
That's... Americans could never survive. I guess there's just certain luxuries or that we need, or our climate is like different, right? We need air conditioning. We need it. Or we're just big babies, whatever. But we need it, and that sounds crazy.
not everywhere. In some ways, we're not that different from you. And maybe we're not even better than you, but we certainly think we are. I mean, we also have McDonald's.
Is that a thing? Europeans think you're better than Americans, like in just generally, like or what at what? Like cuz there are some things America is really really good at. Like making tech companies and, you know, that's something we're real good at and military stuff. And there's things that Europe and individual European countries are really, really, really good at. So, yeah, I don't like to say, like, oh, I don't think Americans are better than anyone. But I don't think, like, anyone is better than us. Like, we are all bad at certain things and we are all good at certain things. It just depends.
And we do like our convenient cars, but we're not that obsessed with it. And our cities don't look like the medieval times. I mean, some do, but we certainly stopped throwing trash out of the windows and burning witches.
I thought Europe looked old, but I guess that's kind of silly. There's a lot of parts of Europe that are very modern, but a lot of Americans think of European architecture as being like very old, medieval, cobblestone, you know, old buildings, hundreds of years old. That's actually really cool. Like, Europe has castles, for crying out loud. You have castles! Like, you have cool stuff. But I think a lot of us Americans forget that you're also very modern and, like, you know, you have normal technology and everything, of course.
As mentioned before, Europe has a lot of countries, so there's a lot of different cultures, foods, traditions, and preferences. And so I gathered some
Cool.
cultural things to generally know about Europe. The first thing on my list is that you're probably not Italian. If the only thing that makes you Italian is that you took an ancestry test that told you that your blood is 57% Italian, you're probably not Italian.
I don't know if Europeans do this, but this is something that a lot of Americans do. DNA tests, ancestry tests to see where we are from. Like, especially in Europe, a lot of us are descended from Europeans, and a lot of Americans are like, oh, yeah, I am 13% Italian. And it's like, calm down. Like, Americans are like, I'm going to start eating spaghetti and meatballs because I'm from my great 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 grandpa is from Italy. It's like, calm down. Like, you're American. Stop. like, like Americans want to get credit for being like their great 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 grandma was from Switzerland or something. Like, it's kind of funny.
It doesn't count if you have Italian ancestors from the 1800s that settled to America. If you didn't grow up in Italy, you don't have any Italian relatives like grandparents, parents, or aunts and uncles, and you don't know how to speak Italian. I'm sorry to say this, but you're not Italian.
No, you're not. No. You're descended from Italians, and it's good if you're proud of your ancestry. That's great. But yeah, Americans who are like, I'm Irish, I celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Like, it gets a little cringy, yeah.
Being able to pronounce mozzarella correctly or having a family recipe of spaghetti and meatballs doesn't give you an Italian passport. Plus, spaghetti and meatballs is an Italian-American dish. They don't really eat that in Italy. Don't
What?
get me wrong, it's a nice fact and it's fun to know where your ancestors came from.
What?
But it doesn't mean that you have the right to claim to be this nationality.
That's true.
Then, a lot of people here are bilingual, but that does not mean that they know English. Oftentimes in most
Okay.
schools you learn 3 languages. Your language, the neighboring country's language, and most likely English, or whatever else you want to learn.
That is amazing. Here in the United States, it is very uncommon to speak more than English. It's like a superpower. Like, it's amazing. I haven't met many people who speak more than one language, more than English. That's very rare. So it's really cool. I have a lot of respect for Europeans for that's really cool how you guys learn different language. You can speak different languages and communicate. Like, that's a whole part of our brain we don't even use. It's a whole language, multiple languages. That's really cool. I don't know anything about that, but it sounds really cool.
But that does not mean everybody speaks English or want to speak English.
Sure, sure. And there's Americans who try to take advantage of it and think there's Americans who think everybody should speak English. That is the world's language. It's like, shut up. We could learn other languages. Instead, we expect everyone to speak English to accommodate us. That's really selfish and dumb. It's just kind of really fortunate that it seems like a lot of European countries do learn English. That's really lucky for Americans like that, because you guys are doing all the work to understand us. That I don't think Americans understand how lucky we are.
So it's always nice to learn a little bit before you come here. Even just knowing how to say please and thank you is already something.
Sure.
Then thirdly, in Eastern Europe and in Northern Europe, people don't really like small talking with strangers. Plus, walking and smiling alone is considered weird. They probably will think you're crazy. People here are reserved and cold because it probably is cold most of the time, and they don't like to waste their energy on things that don't really matter.
Sure. Sounds like a lot of normal American behaviors would be considered weird. Like how Americans will talk to you even if they don't know you, or sit next to you on, like, if in a waiting room, just sit right next to you and not really respect personal space. And some people, yeah, will smile and talk out loud or on the, like, yeah, it's quite different by the sound of it. And No wonder we seem kind of crazy.
So if you see them smiling, it's most likely sincere. Then next we have Sundays. Some countries
That's a good observation because a lot of American behavior can be a bit fake. Like Americans are so willing to talk and make friends, and it's like not very deep, maybe not very sincere sounding. Whereas in Europe, if you're a little more closed off, or it takes longer to develop friendships, or they mean more, and you guys might be more authentic, like you only showing your real emotion. Whereas Americans will try to smile and be happy even when we're not, because it's polite. So yeah, that's definitely a thing.
days. Some countries
Okay, what something this next part is about Sunday?
most likely sincere. Then next we have Sundays. Some countries consider Sunday as a holy day, so a lot of shops and grocery stores are closed. Or they
Okay.
might not be open at their usual schedule.
This is kind of a thing in the United States. Some stuff is closed on Sunday, so this is like similar.
Germany and Poland are quite serious about it, so you'll just have to deal with it. Food is also a big part of our culture, so here is a subsection about food and restaurants.
Food?
Well, first of all, let's talk about additives. The EU is cautious of what we put in our food. As you can see, the fries from McDonald's, here is a list of ingredients in the UK, which I think by that time was part of the EU. And here is a list of ingredients that they use in the US.
I've done some videos about this, how the US has terrible food. Processed food, chemicals in our food, and from what I understand, it's a lot better in Europe, but I'm a little aware of this.
Way more things that I don't know what they are. Don't get me wrong, we have many ingredients that start with the letter E and end with a number, but we are very selective of which ones we want to bring into our club.
That's
What I've
good.
learned from food theory is
good.
that EU takes the approach of guilty until proven innocent. Meaning, if the additives are proven to not be harmful, then they're accepted into our food chain.
That's good. I mean, I think that's very smart. Like, Europe clearly is more health conscious. You're trying to be healthier. And here in the US, all that matters is that companies selling food and snacks make money. That's the number one priority here, making money off of the food. So they want to increase the shelf life and make the colors more vibrant and make the meats, the cows grow bigger and all these crazy chemicals and hormones, and it's insane.
Each country has their own specialties and traditional foods, so there's lots to experience and to try. So we'll probably find it a little bit weird if you stick to McDonald's and Starbucks and Dunkin' that you can find back at home a 10-minute drive away from your house. But
That'd be a shame. Because I think for a lot of Americans, one of the coolest things about trying to travel to Europe is going around and trying all the different food. That would be I think that's what most Americans look forward to if they do travel to Europe is the food.
I do have to say, if you're going to these places to find something new, something that is not sold in your country, then I think it's fine. I've done it.
Yeah.
For some reason, people are judging me for this, but I want to know what a macaron tastes like at a French McDonald's. I'm curious. Is it good? Is it bad?
Yeah.
Should I buy it again? Speaking of restaurants, prepare
Yeah.
yourself that the service will be just okay. They will not go above and beyond to please your every need. They might not be fast and they might not be friendly. They are humans that have emotions and down days and are not full of energy all the time.
And it's because in Europe you don't really tip, right? I understand this. In Europe, the service, the waiters and people serving you are not as fake nice. In America, if you're going to tip somebody, they're really, really incentivized to do a great job, to pretend to like you, to pretend to be happy, to be, we pay extra in America for eating out at a restaurant because we have to leave a tip 15, 18%, 20% tip. But the best part about it, it's really annoying. But the best part is the service is really, really good, usually, because people want a good tip. So they treat you really well. So I don't know. It's tipping is stupid, but that's like the one benefit.
And they will leave you alone to eat your food and might not check up on you at all. I've been to plenty of cafes and restaurants where they did have very friendly and good service, but not all of them will be like this. And so just be mentally prepared that they will not take your dish back and give you a refund if you just don't like it.
This would catch a lot of Americans off guard. This is good to know. I think a lot of Americans would be really, really confused and maybe offended if they didn't know this difference.
You'll just have to pick something better next time. Then also we have tipping. In most countries, waiters receive a fair minimum wage. But it's still minimum wage, so it's quite low. So we do like tipping, but just 5 to 10%.
5 to 10%. Wow. Yeah, in America, it's like getting up to 20%. It's crazy.
More modest tip. Or you just round off the bill that the number looks nice. But the tipping etiquette can be different
I like
for each
that.
country. For example, in Germany, you tip when you pay. But in France, you leave a tip on the table when you leave and already paid. What I hear a
Oh,
lot
wow.
of people from America living or visiting Europe say that we don't have good Mexican food. And it's true, because Mexico is right here,
Yeah.
right next to the United States.
Why would you go to Europe and complain about Mexican food? Are you kidding me? If there are Americans who say this, they are so stupid. That is so stupid. We have good Mexican food here in the US. It's still like kind of fake, like American Mexican food. Um, why go if you're in Europe, eat European countries' food. What?
And Mexico is pretty far away from Europe.
Yeah.
So not a lot of people that know how to cook good Mexican food come to Europe to open Mexican restaurants. And that makes sense because we have a whole ocean between us. Don't get me wrong, I would love to go to a Mexican restaurant, but I don't even know how good Mexican food tastes like because I've never been to Mexico. Because again, it's pretty far away.
Right.
So maybe you should implement geography classes into your school education. Just saying. When visiting restaurants, cafes, and other public places, it is important for us to be spatially aware and not be too loud. Americans have a reputation here in Europe that they're loud and annoying. Maybe they're not necessarily American, they might be Canadian, but just be aware of the situation, if it's quiet or not, and how loud you're speaking.
This is a big problem that a lot of Americans have. Not all of us. But even here in the US, people are loud and annoying and not aware of how they're affecting others. And that is a part of living in the US. Like, we get annoyed at each other for this same behavior. Yeah, and it's sad, but it's true. And that's why we have this stereotype. Yeah.
Especially in countries like Germany. They take it really seriously and they will point it out that you're being too loud.
Oh my
So
God.
if you like this video,
This was great. Wow. That was long, but I enjoyed all that. It's so, for one thing, good for us Americans to learn about this because, like I said at the beginning, this is so needed. Man, like they should just have us watch this video like as kids in school or something. That would have been nice. Because we're not learning any of this stuff about Europe in like American schools and in our day-to-day life. We're not exposed to Europe and European culture, and a lot of us never travel there. But yeah, with the internet and YouTube, like it's cool to be able to just learn all this stuff that you'd never learn just living in the United States. So this was very eye-opening. A lot of really surprising, but really fascinating and a lot of cool stuff about Europe. So I really liked this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on this video, explaining Europe to Americans, and that'd be cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.